Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Dog Walk, the semi or almost daily show where I take the two girls out for their nightly walk while discussing a little bit about myself, a little bit about whatever's been on my mind that particular day in an uncut, unedited, one take manner, and where I typically get to maybe talk about 50% about what I wanted to talk about 25% of the time, because I do tend to ramble on. With that out of the way, I have to say I just had a little glass of scotch, a nice Dalwhinnie 15 that I just opened up today in a sort of celebration, because I just noticed today, might have happened yesterday, but I just noticed today that I got my first like on a video and my first subscriber. So if you're the person who liked, I believe it's episode 8. Yeah, today is February 6th or 7th, I believe. So if you're the person who either liked that video or who subscribed, you're my first. So thank you very much. Again, it's not necessarily my primary goal of this series. It's more to get things off my mind so I don't forget them, and to discuss things that I think that I would like my son Felix to know about. But it's always great to... The reason why I'm posting this on YouTube is to perhaps get a little bit of interaction, feedback, retroaction. So I truly appreciate that, and I hope that if it's you, maybe leave a comment or something like that, so I can thank you properly. But yeah, because of that, and because it's been several days now and several real life events have happened since I filmed the last episode in this series about future governments, plans, economies, and thinking a little bit more four-dimensionally, I will admit that I don't feel as prepared as I should be to discuss the second part of the economic side of the topic, which is how do we get to this sort of utopian economy that I described in the last episode. And this just goes to prove my initial point, or the initial reason why I just mentioned that I'm doing this, which is that I tend to forget a lot of things, or a lot of thoughts that are possibly valuable constantly leave my mind, and I need to record them to keep them. Because frankly, I had more than enough content to fill one or two videos on how do we get there when I first thought of this list of topics. But now that I'm actually here several days later, I'm not sure that I remember even half of them. So I'll have to rewatch all of the series of videos, and then I'm sure a lot of these points will come back to me, and I will do a follow-up. In fact, I do think that, unlike the original plan where I said that I would post the 3 topics and then a summary video sort of linking everything together in a holistic manner, I think that summary video will have to wait a little bit so that I can recharge my mind. As I said, watch all of these videos again, take notes, and do the topic justice, because I think it's an important one. And right now, I'm not in a place where I can just improvise all of it, which is a little unfortunate, but hey, as time progresses and as I make more and more of these videos, hopefully I'll get there. But anyway, with that intro out of the way, let's talk a little bit. Whoa, Misa, whoa. Misa, wait. Daisy is... Mistra! Oh, is that a poop or a pee? I'm just looking. I don't see... Yeah, no, I think we're good. Okay, let's keep going, girls. So, before I get into the how we get there, I'll quickly recap the previous episode where basically my argument was that for the economy, right now, all of our modes of thinking when it comes to barter, trade, value, etc., are all based on... Oh, it's probably too dark here, right? Oh, maybe not. Let's see. You might not see the dogs, but anyway. They're all based on the assumption and principle of resource scarcity, which is how all of history has happened so far, right? There hasn't really been a case in time where everyone had everything that they wanted or needed all the time. So it makes sense that all our systems have been organized that way. But with the advent of AI, 3D printing, exponential growth in technology and computing capacity, I do believe that we actually could be at that point right now. If we invested our resources a little differently, I really truly believe that we could house, clothe, and feed everyone on the planet. But even if we're not actually there right now, I truly believe that soon we will be. And that episode I discussed what I think that sort of idyllic economy would look like, where you actually don't need to work and you can do what will help you feel fulfilled, which will be great for everyone's mental health also, right? Not stuck in a dead-end 9-to-5 job that you hate just to put food on the table, because we'll be able to use 3D printing using different raw materials in order to create electronic circuits, to 3D print houses, to build 3D print a robot that will then be your assistant and that will run a farm in your backyard that will allow you to feed yourself and cook your meals and all of that good stuff, right? So, how do we get there, though? There's several things that need to happen. And I think that the biggest thing, or the biggest barrier to entry, is just human maturity. People right now, I'm sorry, I'm going to use terms that might offend you. Please, if it does, well, sorry, your skin should be a bit thicker. Grow up. But the way, especially in America, or I'll say Western countries, liberal countries and democracies, the way that these millennial snowflakes are raising their Generation Alpha kids to believe that they are unique, special, the best at everything, that basically the world revolves around them, I think that's going to be our downfall. That is so immature, such a narrow, and pardon again my words, but stupid way to look at the world. I really think that before we can have a truly free economy, before people can be happy, before people can have all their needs met, we need to mature out of this individualistic culture. We need to start to think more four-dimensionally, to bring it back to the first video on the topic. Think about the future and others, not just about ourselves. Increase our in-group. And until that happens, we're stuck. And I don't just mean for the average Joe, right? The idiot. I've been talking about this a lot with my friends recently. You know, the idiocracy scenario. If you haven't watched this movie, highly recommend it. Not necessarily for the movie itself, but for the very clear underlying message behind it, which is what happens when you fast forward. In the movie, it's they fast forward 500 years, but the principle is what happens when the lowest common denominator in society has 12 kids per idiot, while all the smart people realize, oh, the economy is bad, or this or that, or we can't afford it yet, and have no children. And then those dozen of children of the idiots have each a dozen children of their own, and etc. and etc. and etc. And it doesn't take very many generations for IQ to plummet in that scenario, and for all the smart people to die out. Remember when I discussed, it's going to be too dark here. Anyway, we'll see. I forgot to check if this is actually visible on camera or not. So it looks pretty dark on the screen here, but anyway, if you remember the exponential growth topic discussion that I had the other day, I think that was episode 9 or something like that. I'll try to leave a card linking you to it. But yeah, when you factor in exponential growth, right now we're on a trajectory where we're kind of doomed. So we need to find a way to get people to reprioritize intelligence and value and non-conformity. And I'm not sure how we get there, because it doesn't matter how logical your argument is, how smart it is, how much it makes sense, if not even 1% of the population even listens to you in the first place, there's no way that you'll ever convince enough people to make an actual change. So we need to find a way, first of all, to get people to mature a little bit, and that will be by far the biggest hurdle to reaching this sort of utopian society where everyone is able to do what makes them happy, or whatever they feel they can best contribute to society. So that's kind of the doom and gloom. Girls, I don't know what you're sniffing, but I'm not sure I want you to. Let's go. Okay. So that's kind of the doom and gloom of it. But let's try to be a little bit more optimistic and try and think of scenarios or gates that would actually allow us to reach that point. So one of the first things that I think needs to happen is we need to increase but destroy social programs. I know that sounds contradictory. Let me explain. Right now, because all of our society is based on money, what do we give to people who are less fortunate? People who are in employment, insurance, or that type of stuff, right? We give them money, maybe food stamps, but in most cases, something that has a monetary value. Sorry, Daisy is lagging behind. So, come on, Daisy, go. I think that we need to expand what we give to the less fortunate, but we need to destroy what we are currently giving them. Instead of giving them money and food stamps that they can, or money that they can use to gamble and this and that, how about we give them actual food? Or we give them access to a community kitchen for free, kind of like in homeless shelters or this or that. But just like a free community cafeteria where everyone can always have a healthy, nutritional, free meal. That will reduce the monetary burden on the state, because they will now be able to provide actual commodities and sort of control. And I know this will irk all the Americans out there, But that'll give the state a little bit more control on what they are giving out for free to people, because no one wants their if you give to charity, do you really want 70% of your gift to go to waste, to buy alcohol and cigarettes, or in the case of charity, to pay the salary of the director of the charity? No, you want your money to help people. So when you put your tax dollars into helping the less fortunate, you should expect those tax dollars to go towards their survival, right? Food, shelter, right? So first step would be to replace those systems and to leverage the initial versions of these technologies that I mentioned in the previous episode in order to enable that. Use 3D printers. The first prototypes are going to be super expensive, right? I told you it already exists. 3D printers that can build houses, create concrete and print the house on site from materials that are there. Well, get the government to buy some of those and start to just 3D print housing. Get the government to fund large-scale farming and agriculture, sustainable, hopefully. That's all automated, preferably, in order to reduce costs, and locally powered, so you don't have to build a whole bunch of grid infrastructure around it, in order to grow the food that then goes to the program that feeds the people. So that's one of the first steps that needs to happen. We need to change the way we help people, members of society, because the reality is that the robots are coming. There's nothing that we can do to stop this AI revolution. And as I mentioned before, it might be the burger flippers who are losing their jobs right now, but it won't be long until everyone, even creatives, are surpassed by AI, and will no longer be economically advantageous to employ a human compared to a machine or an AI. So we need to be ready for everyone to be losing their jobs within a generation, at most 2, and we're not ready for that. So let's start to change how we do this so that basic universal income or help becomes an actual thing. That's the first step. Now, other steps that could be taken and that could help get us there is decentralization of the grid. Everyone needs electricity. It's everywhere. Whether it is to power your Xbox or in the future to power the robot and the 3D printer that are going to support your life and take care of you. So, how do we do that more efficiently? I think that by starting to invest into those first robots and machines that we built, they should be working on creating local grid structures. Whether that is digging big geothermal wells that will power a residential neighborhood, or solar panels, wind, doesn't really matter. Nuclear would even work. The point is that we need to work on energy, because that is going to be the next big crisis, or the next big enabler for the revolution in the economy, for stepping away from the need for money. Now, obviously, this has to be a phased approach, right? Because it's not because the government of Guatemala decides to stop using money and does everything else that I just said, and all their citizens are fine because they all have food and shelter and power, that suddenly the rest of the world stops using money, and right, they'll still need a way to acquire certain rarer elements or resources that may be required, right? Whether it's silver for solar panels, or platinum for catalytic converters, or lithium for batteries. There needs to be a way to transition, right? So those countries, well, ideally this would happen when after everyone has matured a little bit and realized that the color of your skin and or the place where you grew up shouldn't define your entire identity. Please refer to one of the first episodes I made about increasing your in-group. Right? How many? I won't go down that aside. Never mind. Yeah. So ideally, all this would happen after we've realized all this, and we've changed our political systems and created sort of a more global government, I'll say. And it boggles my mind that to this day, it's like people froze in time. They were willing to accept the fact that let's say the US government can control everything in their life, but they will fight tooth and nail against this global government. And why is that? Like, what makes the 18th century so special that whatever lines existed on a map, or whatever artificial demarcations existed between people at that time, must now continue forever, right? Nationalism is actually a very recent development or philosophy, I guess, in the world, and we're acting as if it's the only one. Like, come on, people, grow up. You actually probably have a lot more in common with someone across the ocean than you have with your neighbor. I'm sorry to say, but I believe the truth for most people. Let's say you're a goth or a punk, or you like anime, or you're really into soccer or this, right? Like, there's people like that all over the world, and not just next door. In fact, you might like punk, and your neighbor next door might be a huge classical music. And if you were going by that criteria, as opposed to the criteria of where am I physically located, that person would be out of your community, and the punk from across the pond would be in, right? So grow up, people. Start to realize that we're all humans. But anyway, I'm really going down a divergent path. I was supposed to talk about the economy. So very quickly, because it's a little bit cold, as I said, people need to mature. Governments need to change the way they provide assistance, but they need to actually provide or even increase the assistance that they give to their citizens. There is no reason why a country like the United States or Canada or and many other countries wouldn't be able to provide all the daily nutrition that all of their citizens need for free. Same thing for healthcare. The only reason why we're not doing it is because we're greedy. So we'd rather ship our tomatoes or whatever it is literally to the other side of the planet in order to make an extra 10 cents of profit, rather than distributing it to those in need near us. And that just boggles my mind. So it's not just, oh yeah, that's what I was saying at the top of this, right? It's not just about the idiocracy and the quote-unquote little people. I hope that's not too pejorative of a term. Smartening up. It's also about all the people at the top starting to realize that once you have $15 billion, you might not need a 16th. And maybe you can also stop pretending to care by creating foundations that are in fact just shams, and charities that are basically just tax shelters, or that, claim that you're such a good person because you gave away $10 million to this charity, while meanwhile you just made $10 billion on one deal. Anyway, so get off your high horse and start to help your fellow man. There's no reason why we can't do this. It needs to come from all three ends: the people, the government and its laws, and the people who currently hold the wealth, the value, and whether that's in resources or in production capacity. All three of those heads need to come together for us to get out of, steer away from the cliff at which we are aiming right now, of everyone going to crap when AI takes over and there's no economy, right? Because remember, our entire economy is based on consumer spending, right? And quarterly returns. We lose sight of the long term for the short term gain. And because of that, we're basically we're going this way. So anyway, sorry, I lost my train of thought there. What was I saying? Anyway, the point is that if we don't change the way, start to steer the ship now, while we're still at, minute 57 of the hour-long Petri dish experiment, to refer you back to the exponential growth. Hopefully I'll be able to leave a card, otherwise that won't make sense. But anyway, we need to start to steer now, not when we're at minute 59 and 30 seconds. AI is coming for us, man. So yeah, we need those people to start to not just be fully profit driven and start to think of others, increase their in-group. You wouldn't hesitate to feed your brother if he's in trouble. Why do you hesitate to feed your brother from another brother when he's in trouble? Lisa, this way. We're going this way. Because Daisy's cold. Yeah, we're going to head home. I'm going to have to cut this short. So, yeah, that's those are a few things that need to happen. The other thing that needs to happen is people need to realize that they need to get away from this trying to keep up with the Joneses mentality. Be satisfied with things that you have. I try to reuse as much as I can, not because I can't afford to buy a new high chair for Felix, but if my sister has one that she used for her children and it still works, why would I create more waste? Why would I waste my money? Why would I go and buy a new thing just because it's prettier or it's shinier or I like it better? Start to consider what's good enough. And to that effect, the things that need to go are things like fast fashion, right? That is such a horrible trend for so many years. Maybe I'll do an episode just on that. It's been covered ad nauseum by many other. Daisy, stop turning around. We're going home. Daisy's just, as soon as I... Come on, we're going that way, Daisy. This way. Yes. Go. So, yeah, fast fashion, all that stuff. iPhone technology. In my world, one way to transition to this idyllic economy would be, right, what happens when you lose your job because robots took it over, and now you're on quote-unquote social welfare, living in a government house, fed by government food, and you get your power from the government and all that. well, suddenly you don't have any income, and since we're still in a transitory period to this moneyless economy, where you can just 3D print whatever you need whenever you need it, you need to find, like, there still is going to be a need, right? There's a lot of people will still want their Xbox or their TV or their phone, right? So how can we do this? Well, how about we actually try to do trickle down economics for real? I know that's kind of a joke, the concept of trickle down economics, but the reason why that's a joke is not because it doesn't work, just like the reason why communism failed is not because the system doesn't work, it's because the people working in it are self-centered, greedy, selfish, and they everyone is only out for themselves. So again, mature a little bit, and trickle down economics might actually work. Combine the social redistribution of communism with the power of capitalistic investment. So how that would happen is, let's say Samsung or Apple, because that's another do I want to go into this? Why do the people who make the less money feel like they need to show off their quote-unquote wealth the most, right? I'm in the top 10% of earners in my country, yet I drive a 10-year-old Mazda 3. Why? Because it's cheap on gas, it gets me from point A to point B, and that's what I need. I don't need an Escalade. I could afford an Escalade, but I don't need it. And here I am, the major in my unit, driving an old dinged up Mazda 3, while my privates and corporals, who make much less money than I do, are driving Ford F-250s and have 3 ATVs in their backyard. And anyway, people need to start to become reasonable. But anyway, in order to get there, to go back to trickle down economics, well, maybe, or let's put it this way: how many of you upgrade your phone every time your self-plan carrier is out? A lot of you, or lapses. A lot of you, I bet, right? I know a lot of people who upgrade their phone every year or every 2 years. Well, that creates so much waste. Right? Or people who change their car every 3 years, right? That's so much waste. So how about those who can afford it because they still have a job or because they have inherited wealth or this or that? They get to buy, the new iPhone or the new Samsung or whatever it is. But once they're done with it, it doesn't go back to the company or to the trash bin. It actually gets handed to someone else who doesn't have a cell phone. And that person gets that phone for free because the first person already paid for it. And you do that as long as it's a list that's well managed and well arranged and not corrupted, highly likely only if managed by AI.